Charles Henderson had worked at Maplewood Academy longer than most of the faculty had been there, but hardly anyone remembered his name. Each morning, he would arrive at dawn, long before the teachers and students, and quietly begin his daily routine. He would sweep the halls, check the classrooms to ensure they were tidy, and stock the restrooms with paper towels and soap. He moved along, blending into the environment as if he were merely part of the campus tapestry. His gray hair thinned at the top, and his shoulders slouched from decades of custodial work. Yet, despite the aches in his knees, Charles found solace in the knowledge that the school shone because of his efforts. Every spring, Maplewood Academy hosted its annual Gala, a glamorous affair that celebrated the students' achievements, recognized donors, and featured elaborate decorations. Renowned alumni attended, and it was considered a minor social event in the city. Preparations began weeks in advance. Students auditioned for performances, teachers arranged elaborate projects to showcase, and the administrative staff scrambled to finalize all the details. But behind the excitement, Charles quietly undertook tasks no one realized needed doing, making sure the stage lights were properly cleaned and that the walkways were clear of debris before the decorations went up. He took little pride in the attention such an event drew, but found satisfaction in seeing the campus transform into a magical place for one evening. This year, the theme was an enchanted forest, meant to transport guests into a lush woodland realm adorned with greenery and twinkling lights. The head of the event committee was Miss Castillo, a passionate new teacher who radiated enthusiasm and a touch of stress. Rumor had it that for Miss Castillo, everything had to be perfect. One brisk Monday morning, Charles had finished sweeping the auditorium stage when he spotted Miss Castillo. She was hunched over a large, specially ordered backdrop for the gala, frowning as she pored over instructions for erecting it. Pieces of the frame were scattered on the floor, and her cheeks burned pink with frustration. Charles paused, gloves in his hand, debating if it was his place to help. "Would you like some assistance?" he finally asked in a soft, hesitant voice. Miss Castillo spun around. For a fraction of a second, she blinked, clearly caught off guard by his presence. Then she offered him a relieved smile. "Yes, please. I'm trying to figure out how this new modular frame fits together. Supposedly it's easy, but I can't figure it out." Charles knelt down, picked up a piece of metal, and studied the locking mechanism. Despite the complexity, he carefully clicked a piece into place. "It's all about aligning the grooves." He spoke gently. "Each piece has a specific orientation." Miss Castillo broke into a grin. "Oh, that's how it works. I was forcing it the wrong way." Together, they assembled the backdrop. It took them almost an hour, but when the final piece snapped into place, the result was a movable frame draped in the midst of a shimmering forest-like design. The teacher examined their accomplishment with a mixture of pride and relief. "I owe you big time for this," she said. "Let me know if there's anything I can do to pay you back." Charles only smiled, took off his gloves, and said, "That's not necessary. I just like helping." Then, without waiting to hear more, he returned to his cart of cleaning supplies and continued with his duties. In the days that followed, the gala preparations ramped up. Students rehearsed lines, music reverberated through practice rooms, and every corner of the school buzzed with restless energy. Meanwhile, Charles lugged fishing nets filled with artificial ivy, arranged piles of decorative moss, and straightened the cafeteria chairs for after-school workshop sessions on tables' centerpieces. He did all of this without expecting a single word of thanks. One afternoon, while collecting trash from a rehearsal space, Charles overheard a pair of students complaining about painting sets for the gala's stage production. "We're never going to finish these trees in time," one said, exasperated. "The teacher wants them all to look detailed, like a real forest." Charles gathered the trash from the bin and gently cleared his throat. "Pardon me?" he said. "I happen to know a few painting tricks. If you'd like some help, I can show you a scenic painting technique that makes leaves and bark look more realistic." The students looked at one another and then at Charles with skepticism. The boy, Alex, spoke up. "Oh, sure, I guess. We're desperate here." Charles knelt by one of the partially painted plywood trees. He dipped a brush into a muted green, then an earthy brown. With a few careful flicks of his wrist, he coaxed texture out of the paint, layering the colors to create a dappled effect. To the students' amazement, the simple shape suddenly gained dimension. You can use this method, he explained, by applying the paint sort of like leaves or bark patterns. Just blend carefully and let it dry between layers. The students looked awed. How did you learn all that? Asked Alex. Charles shrugged, cleaning the brush in a cup of water. My father was a painter. I picked up some skills as a boy. Well, thanks, said the second student, Jasmine, giving him a genuine smile. This really helps. Maybe we won't be here all night. Charles nodded, stowed the brush, and finished emptying the trash. As he wheeled his cart out, he paused. I'd be glad to check back if you need more help, he said quietly. They thanked him again, and he departed, satisfied that some small measure of his father's legacy would live on in the painted scenery. A week before the gala, the entire school seemed to morph into a creative workshop. The staff lounge was overrun with boxes of programs waiting to be folded. The music department prepared rosters for the school orchestra's performance, and the principal's office had a steady stream of urgent phone calls regarding last-minute ticket requests. Charles found himself busier than ever. He made sure glued items remained in place, hammered nails for decorations where needed, and replaced numerous light bulbs in the auditorium. He even fixed the old spotlight that had been malfunctioning. On a rainy afternoon, thunder rumbled in the distance as Charles took a moment's rest in a little corner behind the stage where he kept various tools and leftover supplies. While he munched on half a sandwich, he could hear a lone voice singing on stage, crystal clear, melodic, and filled with trembling uncertainties. Upon peeking around the corner, he recognized the singer as Ava, a shy junior rumored to be the soloist for the opening number. She was practicing alone. The microphone reverberated with feedback for a moment, causing her to flinch. He saw her take a shaky breath, then inhale again. She started her verse once more, only to break off midline. She looked around the empty auditorium. I can't do this, she whispered, her expression anguished. Everyone will be judging me. Charles quietly emerged and clapped gently a couple of times. That was lovely, he said, his voice gentle. Ava almost dropped the microphone at the sound. Oh, I didn't realize anyone was here, she said, cheeks reddening in embarrassment. It's not good. I keep messing up. I don't think I'm ready for the gala. Charles approached slowly, careful not to startle her further. I've heard you practicing off and on all week, he told her. You have a beautiful voice. He paused for a moment, recalling his own struggles as a child with stage fright. It's normal to be scared. Ava swallowed, microphone trembling in her hand. I just keep thinking people will whisper about every note, especially the top ones. And in this school, there are so many talented performers. Who am I to get a solo? Charles paused, considering. Singing is more than hitting the right notes. It's about telling a story, he said softly. Focus on the meaning of the words, not the sound, no matter what anyone else says. You're expressing something that's uniquely yours. Her eyes shone with quiet gratitude. She pressed her lips together, then nodded. I guess I can think of it that way, she said. Maybe that'll help me calm down. He offered her a heartfelt smile. It often does. You have a gift. Let yourself enjoy it. With that, he retreated to let Ava practice, leaving her alone with a bit more confidence than before. He could hear her voice again, less shaky now as he gently closed the door behind him. Throughout the school's corridors, Charles remained the unassuming figure, quietly orchestrating small miracles. He tightened loose bolts on the stage railings, replaced a cracked mirror in the backstage dressing area, and rearranged seats so that younger students would get a better view of the festivities. Sometimes Ms. Castillo would stop him in the hall to ask for his opinion on the layout of the tables or where to place the decorative birch tree cutouts that had just arrived. Charles always obliged. He never protested, never demanded credit for his knowledge. He simply offered it. The day of the gala approached, bringing a whirlwind of final touches. Teachers stayed late into the evening, fine-tuning their displays. The drama club adjusted stage cues and tested the lighting. The dining staff arranged elaborate snacks, tapping into all sorts of woodland-inspired themes. Charles found himself earlier at work, later to leave, fueling his efforts with the determination to make sure everything ran smoothly. When the big day finally arrived, the campus looked nearly unrecognizable. A green canopy of vines and faux flora stretched along the hallways, and delicate strings of muted lights glowed above. Wooden arches welcomed guests to an atrium that resembled a mystical clearing. Even the cafeteria was transformed into a banquet hall, brimming with rustic elegance. Parents, donors, and returning alumni filtered in with wide-eyed amazement, quick to praise how the school had outdone itself this year. Meanwhile, Charles hovered on the periphery, armed with a checklist he had created for himself. He paused at the auditorium to confirm the projector was functioning smoothly. Next, he hurried across campus to fix a broken hinge on a decorative gate that was meant to direct attendees to the silent auction. Despite the flurry of tasks, he still found time to reassure a frantic drama teacher who couldn't find the correct cables to connect the stage monitors. He rummaged through the supply closet, located exactly what was needed, and handed them over with his usual unassuming composure. As evening descended, the lanterns lining the pathways flickered into life. The soft hum of conversation mixed with the sounds of the jazz ensemble warming up on stage. From a hidden corner behind the scenes, Charles watched as the head of the school, Dr. Rosen, took the microphone to welcome the guests. Dr. Rosen was an imposing figure with slicked back silver hair, known for his sweeping, eloquent speeches that never failed to captivate donors. Dr. Rosen praised Ms. Castillo's creative vision, lauded the students' hard work, and highlighted the generosity of Maplewood's trustees. But Charles was not mentioned. He didn't expect to be. That wasn't how these things went. And truly, he didn't mind. He was pleased enough that everything looked beautiful and that the stage was set for a wonderful evening. As Dr. Rosen prepared to invite the first performer onto the stage, a sudden pop echoed overhead. Charles looked up in alarm. One of the main overhead lights flickered ominously. The crowd buzzed with confusion. Miss Castillo, who was near the stage, covered her mouth in horror. If that light failed, it threatened to plunge half the stage into darkness. Charles glanced back to see if he could quickly address the issue, but Dr. Rosen was already calling Ava's name for the opening solo. A hush fell as Ava stepped into the single spotlight that still worked perfectly. The other lights flickered, and for a moment she looked panicked. Charles took a deep breath. He knew the fuse box was located behind the left stage door. He also knew the wiring on that old set of overhead lights could be tempered. Making a mental note of which circuit likely needed adjusting, he slipped away quietly, determined to fix it before Ava reached the big crescendo. Backstage, he hurried to the locked metal cabinet that housed the fuse box. With calm efficiency, he recognized the fuse connected to the overhead lights. He adjusted the breaker and tested a replacement in record time. The lights flickered again, then steadied. By the time Charles shut the cabinet, the stage had regained all its brightness. He crept to the edge of a curtain and peeked out in time to see Ava center stage, her voice resonating through the auditorium. True to his advice, she seemed to be letting the lyrics guide her. The audience sat enraptured, nearly holding their breath. Her final notes soared gracefully and then sustained, until at last it diminished into silence. The audience erupted in applause. She bowed, eyes shining as she soaked in the adoration. Charles felt an unexpected lump form in his throat. He retreated once more to his invisible vantage point, quietly pleased with the night's progress. The performances continued without any other mishaps. A short comedic play by the drama club elicited waves of laughter, and the orchestra performed with uncanny precision. When the student art exhibition opened, guests marveled at the vibrant sculptures and paintings, some showcasing the very tree designs Charles had helped bring to life with his painting tips. Later, Ms. Castillo invited everyone to the courtyard. Clear canopies protected attendees from the mild spring night, while still allowing starlight to shine. The courtyard had been transformed into a whimsical woodland scene, leafy vines draped over twinkling net lights, and the magical aura was exactly what Miss Castillo had envisioned. Small wooden stands displayed silent auction items, and a spot across the courtyard showcased a large, newly installed fountain. Charles had arrived earlier to check the pumps, ensuring they didn't clog or malfunction. Tonight, water flowed smoothly over carved stones, adding a soft and relaxing melody beneath the cheerful chatter of guests. As the silent auction neared a close, Dr. Rosen once again approached the microphone to thank supporters. These events aren't possible without the dedication of our teachers, our students, and the generous patrons of Maplewood Academy, he declared. But tonight, I'd also like to point out a very special individual. Charles, who was standing near a table laden with hors d'oeuvres, finished straightening the napkins. He glanced up politely. Dr. Rosen scanned the crowd, and Maplewood's staff members locked eyes in a silent question. Who was he referring to? Dr. Rosen smiled. It has been brought to my attention that while many of us take credit for the school's successes, some remain out of the spotlight. Our janitor, Charles Henderson, is one such person who has contributed immeasurably to tonight's gala. His voice reverberated in the courtyard. Conversations hushed, heads turned in every direction, searching for Charles. Mr. Henderson, please step forward. Charles felt a wave of heat creep up his cheeks. Instinctively, he wanted to disappear behind the nearest decoration, but Miss Castillo caught sight of him and gently tugged him toward the center of the courtyard. The applause started, quietly at first, then with mounting enthusiasm. Charles found himself standing awkwardly in front of everyone, not knowing where to direct his gaze. Dr. Rosen nodded at Miss Castillo, who moved to the mic. Her eyes shone with gratitude. Mr. Henderson was the one who helped me set up the stage frame, coached our art students on painting techniques, fixed countless problems behind the scenes, and made sure all the decorations looked their best. He's been working tirelessly for weeks, and I truly believe the gala wouldn't be so magical without him. She stepped away, allowing the crowd's applause to ripple through the courtyard. Charles felt the sincerity tug at his heart. This was the kind of public praise he had never before received. He tried to find the right words, but his throat constricted. Instead, standing there, he offered a shaky nod of acknowledgement. The applause eventually died down, but the gratitude lingered and the many eyes turned toward him. Dr. Rosen placed a hand on Charles's shoulder. Your dedication is an inspiration, he said over the microphone. We thank you. At last, Charles managed to speak. He cleared his throat. Thank you, he said, his voice strained with emotion. Working at Maplewood has always been a privilege for me. I just try to help where I can. He gave a brief bow of his head, and Ms. Casiligo guided him away from center stage before he became overwhelmed. Later, as the festivities resumed, Charles felt more exposed than ever. People approached him throughout the evening, shaking his hand or patting him on the back. Some teachers apologized for not realizing how much responsibility he quietly shouldered. Students came up to say they appreciated his guidance and patience. A few parents and alumni simply expressed gratitude. As the night progressed, the outpouring of warmth and recognition left him dazed, but in a humbled state of joy. When the gala reached its conclusion, guests trickled out of the courtyard and filtered toward their cars or the local buses. It left behind a school transformed into a still, dreamlike wonderland in the quiet hours of the night. The lights twinkled in the near-empty courtyard, and music no longer played. Charles found himself lingering, taking in the scene as if it were all new to him. For once, he sensed a glimmer of belonging, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, the small acts he'd done truly mattered. But even in that moment of validation, he remembered the tasks that still needed finishing. Tables had to be cleared, raffle signs taken down, decorations carefully stored away so they might be used again or repurposed. Yet a smile warmed his face as he tidied up. This time, Miss Castillo, several teachers, and some enthusiastic students joined him. They sorted leftover programs, gathered stray pieces of decor, and conscientiously rolled away the pieces of the large forest-themed backdrop they would store in the drama room. Charles even spotted Ava helping fold chairs, humming the melodies she had performed so flawlessly hours earlier. She spared him a beaming nod when she spotted him across the courtyard. It was nearly midnight when the school, at last, returned to a semblance of normal. Ms. Castillo and a couple of parent volunteers exchanged goodbyes, leaving Charles alone to lock up. He walked through each hallway, ensuring the lights were off and doors secure. In the auditorium, small flecks of confetti glittered in the seats, remnants of the night's performances. Charles had already swept the stage before the group had left, but he gave it one last look, running a hand along the newly replaced railing. Memories of the last few weeks washed over him. The painting sessions, the pep talks, the last-minute repairs. He glanced up at the overhead lights that had threatened to shut down mid-show. They were stable now, thanks to his quick fix. He allowed himself a final moment to stand on center stage. The velvet curtain hung majestically on either side. He pictured the rows of guests applauding, recalled Ava's shining moment, and remembered the thunderous applause that for one brief instant had been directed at him. Maplewood Academy was a place built on accolades and showmanship, but behind every dazzling performance, someone worked unseen to keep everything in place. Tonight, he had been reminded that such behind-the-scenes efforts didn't go entirely unnoticed. Walking out under the moon's soft glow, Charles locked up the auditorium. The campus felt peaceful, the night air tinged with a faint scent of spring blossoms. He clipped his keys to his belt loop and strolled across the lawn, heading toward the maintenance office where he'd store his cart until morning. Suddenly, he caught sight of movement near a line of tall oak trees that formed a border around the courtyard. He paused, unsure if a guest or student was still lingering. Then he saw a small figure step into the courtyard lights. It was Ava, who lifted a delicate orchid from a nearby table arrangement. She traced the petals, then turned to Charles with a timid wave. "I just wanted to thank you," she called, voice echoing in the hush. "You really helped me believe in myself." He gave her a warm nod. "You've got an incredible gift," he replied. "Promise me you'll keep singing." She clutched the orchid, face illuminated under the twinkling canopy. "I will." With that, she slipped away, heading toward the front of the school. Charles watched her depart, heart full. Eventually, Charles made his way to the maintenance office. He propped his broom against the wall, placed his cart in the corner, and flipped off the single fluorescent light overhead. As he stepped outside, the hush of the night enveloped him like a gentle whisper. He paused there, reflecting on the gala, thinking about how, just this once, people had seen him. Really seen him. A stray wind hinted at the end of spring, rustling the leaves. Charles inhaled the crisp air. The final illusions of the enchanted forest were gone, but the real magic, he knew, was in how each person, regardless of status or title, had the power to contribute something exceptional. He was simply a janitor, but during nights like this, titles ceased to matter. What mattered was that the show went on, that someone's dream was nurtured, that the lights stayed on when people needed them most, and that the stage remained standing beneath everyone's steps. He set off down the moonlit path leading toward the school's exit, allowing himself a small measure of pride. The gala had been a grand success, and though the shining spotlight was never truly his, Charles Henderson felt both accomplished and immensely blessed. If people smiled more brightly, or if a timid singer's voice soared a bit higher, or if a student found new confidence in painting a transformation on simple plywood, well, he had a hand in making that possible. And that kind of greatness, the quiet kind that asks for nothing in return, was enough. By first light, he would return vacuuming confetti out of carpets and washing smudges from the windows. He would be the same Charles Henderson he'd always been, humble, diligent, and largely unnoticed. Yet the folks of Maplewood Academy would forever hold in their memory how his gentle hands and quiet guidance had shaped one of the most magical evenings the school had ever known.